How hard is it to do the, let's see,
Simulation.
the simulation? Okay. All right. And oh, it just went away again. Sorry. Here, I'll type that out there for you. How hard is it to do the simulation? Okay. View of how the
that's how AI works in the training simulation. Just really interested to see how that whole thing works.
Okay,
our annotation skills are clearly lacking, so
that's okay. Well, it looks like it might be the annotations issue, because it looks like lots of people are having that. So for those of you that are just joining, we are writing out here what you would like to get out of this hour we have together here today. Generally, we're talking about AI simulation, artificial intelligence simulation workshops or trainings. So what would you like to know about that? And you can type this into the chat if you're, if annotation isn't your friend, which there are directions on the screen of how to annotate if you do want to be brave, and go ahead and do that. All right, it looks like we've had some other people join us since I've been welcoming people. So welcome Deepak and Kelly, good to have you here from CoBank, thanks. Lizlyn, good to see you. And Deborah from Chicago is here, thanks. And looks like Laura, hi, good to see you. And who do we have that is listed as SIM, SIM? Are you our simulation? Did our simulation log on itself? Oh my gosh.
Hi, no, sorry, that's me. My name's Simon Mall.
Simon Mall. Okay, thanks, Simon. All right, you scared me there for a second. I thought, oh my gosh, our technology is taking over. It logged on itself. Okay, we refer to the simulations as sims all the time. So, all right, well, thank you. Let's see, what else do we have on the screen there, just to see how things unfold. Interesting to see how AI can work in training and virtual workshops. How hard is it to do? In the chat, we have what a simulation provides over a typical class. How could AI simulation be used to improve working conditions in e-learning space? Ah, yes, certainly we'll be talking about all of this, how the simulation works. Skynet has come alive. Yes, Damon, hopefully not, but yes. All right, so yeah, we are going to be talking through all of this that you have on the screen here and some more. However, if we don't address any of your specific questions, I'm going to put in the chat a link to my calendar, my Calendly, and please schedule time with me if you want additional time to talk about anything on this topic. I'm happy to go into a deeper conversation with anyone. So let's clear our drawings and we will officially get kicked off. So if any of you still have the annotate bar open, you might want to X out of it in the left-hand corner so that then if you start typing something, it doesn't end up on the screen. So just to let you know, you can X out of annotate. Let's also use the chat here throughout this workshop to communicate to the group. So let's just put some type of greeting in the chat for everybody to see about where you are logging on from. So I'm in Denver, Colorado. Let us know what part of the world you are in. Jerry's in Atlanta, Lakewood, Chicago, Raleigh, Glenwood Springs. Hi, Jessica, good to see you. Thanks for being on camera too. Deepak's in Denver, Laura's in Vancouver, sunny there. Ooh, nice. I don't think it's always sunny there, so that's exciting. Dennis is in Chicago, Simon is in Toronto, and Kelly's in Denver also. Okay, great. Oh, and Natasha's calling in from Trinidad. Awesome. It's much warmer there, I'm sure, than any of our other locations. All right, so we will keep using that chat frequently. This is intended to be an interactive workshop, so please use the chat as often as you would like. And this hour is going to be an opportunity for you to learn how to help liven up your training offerings and help your team learn more efficiently via gamification. So we're going to be talking about the learning by doing opportunity to have this really high training ROI. So I'll introduce myself here real quick before we get into the details. So I'm Tracy Graff. I'm the founder of Fuse Igniting Communication, which is an innovative training company. We have a variety of workshops focused on workplace communication skills. And Fuse's trainings help equip people with the soft skills to lead their projects and their organization towards success. So we help clients achieve goals in 3 different major areas: transformational leadership, prosperous team collaboration, and beneficial partnership relationships. And these all help drive positive results in the workplace. 4 of our 10 workshops utilize artificial intelligence simulation software to help people learn by doing. So that's what we're going to talk about here today. Fuse is the sole distributor in the US of these simulation workshops, which were developed by our partner in the UK. All right, so here's an agenda, what we're going to cover over this hour. We're going to give an overview of this unique AI technology that is used in our workshops. We're going to set the stage for about 20 minutes or so, giving you a picture of the class structure, what participants learn in full workshops, how this can benefit your teams. Then we'll have another 20 minutes where we're going to sample 2 of our 4 AI simulation workshops. We'll show you various technology interfaces, reporting, and scoring. And then the last 20 minutes, we'll discuss the unique benefits of each of the 4 workshops. And you can ask questions about how these workshops can help achieve your team's goals or whatever you're curious about. However, since this is very interactive, please ask questions throughout the workshop. You don't have to save them for the end. Please chime in anytime you'd like, throw your questions in the chat or come off of mute or whatnot. All right. So let's start with that overview of this artificial intelligence technology that's used in our workshops. Okay, don't worry, you don't have to put on a VR headset, Oculus or whatnot. It's not like that. This is browser-based technology. So just logging in on the participants' computers, it works really well. It's optimized with Chrome, Firefox, and Safari. So really, essentially any browser that your participants would be using. And we give a license to teams of 3 to use the simulation technology together as a team participating in the workshop. And we typically have at least 3 teams, so about 9 total participants. So there's 3 teams competing against each other. The simulation technology is driven by artificial intelligence in that it plays back with you like a sophisticated online chess game. When you make one move, the simulation stakeholders adjust their moves accordingly. There's 12 simulated stakeholders, so there's 12 to 20, depending on which simulation we're looking at, stakeholders in there. And so think about if you're in a simulation where it's a 3-month-long project and you wait 2 months in to start asking someone for advice, they're going to say, obviously you don't really care about me that you waited so long, right? They're going to give you the cold shoulder. Or they're going to start responding more favorably if you take the time to meet face-to-face with someone versus using just email to try to establish a relationship with a new contact. How would you respond if a stranger just started sending you emails? Would you respond favorably? Would you read on? Probably not, right? So that happens in the simulation where people prefer to develop a relationship first before you start asking favors. So the simulation paths adjust based on each decision the participants make. They're competing to unveil the right mix of tactics, timing, audiences, and message delivery formats in order to get the best score. It's not just like one of those choose your own adventure books. I don't know if anybody else here is as old as me, but I used to have those books, right? Where you just, at the end of a chapter, you could choose to go to whatever. It's not like, it's much more sophisticated than that. There's actually over 1 million different possible experiences in each game. So rarely will someone have the same experience. If you make poor decisions, the system will make it harder and harder. If you fix your mistakes, the system will make it easier, like real life. There's also a sophisticated social network where stakeholders influence each other. And advanced scoring technology allows expert facilitators to guide the participants to learn from the mistakes, to say, Okay, so you told this stakeholder something, but their friend found out about it also, and their friend wasn't happy about it, right? People are actually talking behind your back, like in real life, also in the simulation. Let's see, anything in the chat? Let's see. Laura asked if we get access to the recording of this workshop. No, Laura, this is intended to be just live participated today. The only thing we're recording for is to maybe pull some small snippets out for marketing purposes to do like a minute or so here or there. But if anybody would like to have a separate demonstration of any of our simulations, I'm happy to set those up for you. Again, I'll put my Calendly link in the chat, and I can set up a demonstration if anybody wants additional information. Also in the chat, David asked, are there time considerations in the simulations? So yes, we will go through here shortly the structure of each of the simulations where we'll talk about timing, if that's okay, David. All right, so any other questions I can answer about the technology before we move on? All right, so here are the 4 different workshop options. I may want to drum roll here, drum roll. Okay, here we go. All right, so our 4 simulations are stakeholder engagement. This is our flagship tool. It's used by tons of people all around the world all the time. So this is a very true to life practice, motivating both partners and adversaries to find alignment in support of a shared vision. This is really beneficial for anyone who manages relationships with internal and external stakeholders. We also have Innovation Changemaker, which is also hands-on experience. This is about gaining support from both your peers and internal leaders for a new product launch. This is about how to best adopt new innovative ideas and change, talking about trying to figure out who's going to be the innovators and who's going to dig in their heels and not support new ideas. With leading change, this is a realistic management practice, helping your organization to not only survive change, but to thrive through change. The simulation includes complex decisions around downsizing and rationalization, all the things that many organizations are having to deal with right now due to the pandemic. So this is for senior leaders and emerging leaders that get to practice things like how they might lead a new digital transformation, new policies, processes, etc. And then we have crisis management, which is firsthand preparation, developing measured, appropriate responses before the crisis happens, right? Most organizations wait until after crisis happens to figure out how to respond. This allows you to practice situations that have complexity and ambiguity around decisions, roles, and communication strategies related to a crisis situation. Anyone have any specific questions about these before I give you more information about them? I guess I'll probably be answering questions as we go. So I'll go into some more about this. So let's talk about the structure of these awesome sounding workshops, right? You're probably wondering, how do these play out in real time? So this goes back to David's question about timing. So each of the simulations provides months of hands-on workplace experience in only the matter of 6 to 8 hours of a workshop. We often split these workshops into about 4 hours one day, another half day with 4 hours another day if we're delivering them virtually. We can deliver them virtually or classroom whenever people feel safe to do that face-to-face again. We've been doing it, obviously we've been doing it 100% the past couple of years virtually, but pre-pandemic we did probably about 30% were delivered in classroom and 70% online. So in that 6 to 8 hour workshop, participants use a 30-page workbook that provides them many case studies and templates that are utilized during the live conversations that happen. We customize these conversations to each group to ensure that they're thinking about their real world stakeholders first before they get into the simulation. And that way they're able to relate the simulated experience to learn some life lessons when they do play the simulation. Now, David, here comes the timing about the simulation answer. So it's about 2 hours of total game time in the simulation. We tend to break that up into about 3 segments so that the teams can go in and play the simulation for about 40 minutes or so. Then we all get back together as a larger group. The facilitator reveals some of these scoring reports that I'll show to you later, that give learnings to the teams about what they're doing well or where they could strive to improve in the next game segments that they go into. And then after the simulation is complete, there are a whole bunch of activities that we use to transfer the lessons learned and skills gained during the workshop back to their real workplace. Anything I can clarify about the structure of the workshops?
Actually, I was intrigued to know about so when I'm in the simulation, is it going to show a 6-month period, a 4-month period? How long do I have to interact and make the things happen that I need to have happen?
Yeah, so it varies based on which workshop we're talking about. So stakeholder engagement is a 3-month project, so about 90 days. Innovation Changemaker is 100 days. Leading change is about 8 weeks, so about 2 months. And crisis management is a 2-week period. It's a little bit more condensed because of crisis situation. So they each have their own different scenario, but they play out over about 90 to 120 minutes, depending on which simulation we're talking about. So real pressure because the time is ticking by pretty fast. Yeah.
Tracy, the access to the simulations themselves is limited only to the workshop. Is that correct? So it's not that you're doing a workshop and then the user is going out after the fact and continuing to run different kind of different sessions on the simulator if you to and improve from their learnings.
Deepak, your mic's a little fuzzy, but I think you were asking if you are using the simulation after the workshop also, or only during the workshop. Yeah, so it's just during the workshop. So the 2 hours in the simulation is live in the workshop, and that is very strategic because it's intended to be used as a live team of 3 participants working together, and so there's a really awesome additional lessons learned and team bonding that happens because you and your 2 real life stakeholders need to communicate with each other what decisions you're going to make. And when the time's ticking by fast, you have to decide how to communicate quickly with one another. And then of course, also so that the live facilitator can help guide you and come in and make sure that you're doing it right, getting the lessons learned. Is self-guided, certainly doesn't have the same lessons learned with it. So. Yeah.
So Tracy, just a quick question. You say it's customized live conversations. To customize, do you do interviews up front? How do you make it customized?
So we tend to have at least an hour-long meeting with the leader of the team before the workshop to learn more about the team's goals, what kind of stakeholders they work with, learn all of that so that the facilitator can then guide the team to make sure that they're relating the stakeholders in this simulation to their real workplace. Yeah. Great.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's keep rolling, and so that you can keep in mind during the demonstration how this technology could be implemented to help you achieve your goals. We'll just say that the variety of different ways we can deliver any of our 4 AI simulation workshops for your audience. I'm just gonna hit mute here real quick. Okay, is we have 3 different ways that we can deliver any of our 4 AI simulations. So 1, Fuse can deliver the workshop for your group, specifically at your organization or virtually for your organization. Or we could partner together if you're a consultant to deliver a workshop under your organization's brand with no mention of Fuse. Or we can accredit you or someone else in your organization to deliver the workshops yourself. So if you're in-house or you're a consultant, either way, we're constantly accrediting facilitators to be able to deliver these workshops. So, and let me know if you're interested in any of those. Let's do a little poll here. I'm going to launch a poll. It should be up on your screen. Tell us, what areas do you want your team to develop in? This could be internal teams, it could be clients, whatever your thought of team is. What kind of training are you most interested in? And if there's anything that's not on the screen, you could type that into the chat also. There's that other option, and we'd love to hear more about that also. So I know early in the year here, we're probably all looking forward to what are we going to learn this year, what our team's going to learn. So hopefully some of these are on your radar. Or if they're not, let us know what other things are on your radar. All right, looks like we just have a couple more responses to come in, and then we'll end our poll. Okay, let's show the results here. So looks like we have a two-way tie with the first and second one. So 67% of you want to engage internal and external stakeholders to find alignment. And another 67% want to prepare leaders to successfully roll out change initiatives. Okay. And then 25% want to stimulate internal support laterally and above for innovative ideas. And then 17% want to ready frontline leaders. Let's see, I'm going to stop my share there of that and show you here how each of these 4 different development areas are addressed in our different workshops. So that first one, engaging internal and external stakeholders, that 67% of you were interested in, that's what stakeholder engagement is all about, that workshop. So if that's something that you're looking to do, let's talk about stakeholder engagement workshops for your teams. Stimulate internal support laterally and above for innovative ideas. That's Innovation Changemaker, really teaches how to stimulate those ideas and support. And preparing leaders to successfully roll out change initiatives. That's what Leading Change, that workshop, is all about. And then finally, crisis management readies frontline leaders to respond effectively if a crisis hits. So our variety of workshops have helped all sizes of clients, from small businesses to Fortune 100 enterprises, through these same challenges. And we realize that most business successes and failures are a result of how we manage relationships with our workplace stakeholders. That's what all of these simulations are about. They are about having a complicated network of relationships and how do you navigate them? Because we can't achieve our goals if you don't communicate effectively with others. Okay, so let's clarify what we mean by stakeholders. So type into the chat or come off with you and share with us, what do you think stakeholders are? What's the definition of stakeholders?
Well, at its most basic, it's, who has skin in the game, who's going to be impacted by whatever this action or decision or change or crisis.
Right, Deborah. Yes, exactly. Who has skin in the game? And let's see what's happened in the chat. David says internal, external people who use what we are building or making. Oh, we've got our annotate still happening there. I'm gonna go ahead and clear that out. And Jerry, if you want to, we're gonna just put that in the chat if you want, Jerry. Sorry, as Jerry said, those people who will impact the change either positively or negatively, or owners of key processes. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and clear that out. And I'm going to share there that yes, like many of you are saying in the chat, anyone that can affect what you are trying to achieve. Or like Deborah said, also anyone who could be impacted by decisions that you make. So stakeholders are everywhere: clients, vendors, partners, regulators, even family, personal friends and family can affect our workplace decisions or can be affected by what we decide. And so then, we want to think about none of us tend to work in a silo alone, right? Do any of you not rely on anybody else ever to achieve your goals? No, right. So most of us need to work with others in order to achieve our goals. And so that's what these simulation workshops do. Practice effectively navigating stakeholder relationships and prioritizing key stakeholders, since sometimes our issue is having too many stakeholders, that we get overwhelmed with all the communication. So in our simulations, we address a process for prioritizing who is a key stakeholder. All right, so we are going to now spend about 10 minutes or so giving you a preview of stakeholder engagement. So with this simulation, we are going to be showing you this one that was about focusing on relationships with internal and external stakeholders. There will be 12 simulated stakeholders. And what we're going to, I'm going to stop the screen share to bring up another one. And we are going to have only 1.5 minutes per day in this demonstration. It's 2 minutes in the full workshop experience. So back to David's question there. And we are going to, so when I get into the simulation, if you want to ask any specific questions, just please come off of mute and say, oh, can we ask this or can we ask that? Or type in the chat if you want, but probably with the amount of time we have coming off of mute would probably be the best way to do this. So sorry, I'm just trying to talk and multitask. I should probably focus on one thing at a time. Okay, here we go. Okay, so are you seeing the screen that says welcome to Pactio Prendo? Okay, so let's go ahead and log in here. This is a part played game. I've already played some of it. So, so press release pops up as soon as we get in, and we are seeing here that we had positive news. This was one that I asked our assistant to send out. So we're announcing that we're planning to minimize the lung disease rate for our workers. So sometimes positive things come out, sometimes negative things come out also, just like real life. People are out there spreading news that we don't always necessarily want to hear. Everything will be on this tablet if you want to go back and review. So something like, oh, you know what, I'm going to stop my share and so I could make sure I'm sharing the sound also. So let's go back to do that. So like, for example,
a spokesman for the Amazon region's indigenous groups informed our correspondent that the proposed copper mine would force the destruction of one of the oldest indigenous habitations in Venezuela.
Were you able to hear that okay? Okay, so like that was something that we did not send out to the news media. Someone else sent that out about us. So lots of different news articles that come out in there, and you can hear the time ticking by. So we're going to be moving on to our next day here. And let's see. So we have a meeting that I scheduled in advance. So we are going to go in now and meet with Lucia Martinez. She is one of our major vendors. So we could ask her some questions. So all of the options in the simulation are drop down. So there's no free typing, but they change throughout the simulation. So as you interact with people and as you change things in your development plan, options change, all right? So maybe at the beginning, we want to be asking her things like what aspects of the plan are important to her. So every detail. Okay, so she wants to know about everything. Does anybody else want to ask any specific questions or tell Lucia anything here? Let's go back to the questions maybe. Anybody want to ask a specific question?
What's your communication preferences?
Okay, yeah, and that's important to know, right? So she wants regular updates, but she doesn't mind if it's phone or email. So that's good for us to know that we don't have to schedule face-to-face meetings with her all the time, right? So lots of different things we can ask about advice and whatnot. All right, so that day was gone. That's all we had, was a minute and a half with her. The desktop here has a few different things. We have our development plan. So when we make changes here on the left in our decisions, it affects the outcome on the right. So for example, right now our profit is 466 million. We're trying to find a delicate balance of reaching revenue goals, which are established at the beginning of the workshop, excuse me, and also keeping the most important stakeholders happy with what they care about. So for example, we know that the parrots are actually pretty important to a lot of people because it's an endangered species that would be extinct if we open pit mine. Open pit mine would destroy the land. So we're underground mining right now, which saves the parrots. See, it's unaffected over here on the right. But if we change that to open pit, the parrots are destroyed, but our profit just went up about $300 million, right? So we've got to make decisions, which is more important, you know, keeping people happy about the parrots or having an extra $300 million of profit. Lots of different decisions that we make. And we relate these back to the stakeholders' real life before we go into the simulation. Of course, most people aren't making decisions about parrots, but we talk about how, well, what is your hot button in your business, right? What is the controversial thing that some people care about and other people would rather have profit instead of caring about that or whatnot? So everything is relatable to any industry. This has been used in you know, thousands of companies around the world. We also have a calendar that shows our different meetings that we have coming up, etc. Oops, sorry, my screen. And we have a stakeholder scorecard. So this is question marks if we've not interacted with anybody, or it starts to reveal people's opinions about how they feel about you from a -3 to a +3 as you interact with them. In real life, we don't have a stakeholder scorecard, but we do have the opportunity to get a feel for if people are happy with our plans or whatnot, right? And so we advise that our participants try to use this in the real world to ask their stakeholders questions, try to get a feel for how they're feeling. And you're not going to get everybody to a +3, because sometimes, you know, a -1 for someone who's like a protester could be a positive, you know, could be a good improvement. Okay, what other questions do people have? What can I do for you in here?
How are personalities handled? The players' personalities and maybe some of the stakeholders' personalities.
Yeah, I'll show you when we come out of this, the briefs that for each of the simulation, there's the workbook that has a brief on each of the stakeholders, and it shows a little bit more about each of the stakeholders. And those personalities come into play, such as, you know, things that you can reveal by asking them things like your communication preference, that kind of thing. But a lot of other things are revealed in the brief. So I'll show you that after we come out of this one.
And then another question real quick is, how long does it take them to learn how to play the game? Play the simulation, not a game.
It's okay. It's a business game. Yeah. So with each of our workshops, we give the participants about 20 minutes of practice time to do a warm-up session with the simulation, so they get comfortable with the technology, so that there's no issues with the technology affecting their score. So yeah, about 20 minutes to get comfortable with it. And then they go into the real game. Yeah. Any other questions? Oops. We got another meeting. Let's go into that real quick. So we have two people here. So Valerie is our largest customer. She purchases 35% of our output. And Ricardo Silver is the mine workers union leader. So he has control over all of those workers if they might go on strike or whatnot. So what do you want to ask them? Anybody want to ask anything in particular?
I would ask what aspects of the plan are important to you.
Thank you, Mickey. Appreciate it. So we asked them that. So with each of the things we learn about our stakeholders, we've given the participants an Excel document to be able to track each of them. So I'll show you that when we pop out also, as to how you can track what you're learning from each of the interactions you have with the stakeholders. And then if we ask them for advice, they're also going to give us different information. And again, their responses will change as we go through the simulation, depending on how we interact with them. Like I said, if we waited to ask them for advice till a long time, they wouldn't actually give us advice. They'd say it's too late to ask me or something like that. Okay. Let's pop out of this one and I'll show you some of those things that some of the other questions came up, unless anybody wants to see anything else in this simulation before we move on. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go back and show some of those things that David asked some questions about. So here are some of the workbooks. So for the stakeholder engagement that we were just looking at, this is the workbook, and there's a brief that you get, a memo that talks about the project, shares information about the plots where you can mine, and then a little bit of information about each of the stakeholders. Also with Innovation Changemaker, there's a lot more information that we get about each of the stakeholders here with their profile, about if they have a personality to be more of an innovative type of person or one of those resistors or whatnot. We also have, let's see here. We also have our stakeholder profiling tool. I'll show you this, our tracking tool. So we have an Excel sheet that, like I mentioned, when we were in the simulation, when you learn information about the stakeholders, there are drop downs that people use to keep information about what people care about. So personality kind of is a bit about, are you someone who cares about the workers? And so if so, you care about the lung disease rate of workers, those kind of things. And you can keep track of them as you interact with people and learn about them. In Innovation Changemaker, that information is in a different Excel sheet like this, where there's a drop down that changes here where you learn the information about people, and then you can drag people onto this bell curve as you learn about their personality. If they're more of an innovator, you put them on this side. If they're more of a resistor, you put them on this side, and you keep track of personality things like that way.
So really, just like in the real world, you have to learn their personalities. They aren't just fed to you. Right,
exactly. You get a little bit of a brief, kind of like how much you get from like maybe a LinkedIn profile or something like that. You get a brief on each person, but you have to learn by asking them questions as you go along. Yeah. And keep track of that. Thanks. All right. Do you all want to see Innovation Changemaker, which is a little bit of a different technology than the stakeholder engagement one that we showed? Are you interested in seeing that? Okay. All right, I will. Oh, actually, you know what I'm going to say real quick, just before we go into that one, I'm going to go back here and say with Innovation Changemaker, some people are like, what does that mean? What is Innovation Changemaker, right? So I'm going to ask you that first before we go in. What do you think that Innovation Changemaker means? Go ahead and type in the chat what that would mean to you. Pushes the status quo, okay. Being creative with possible solutions, drives new ideas and functions in the organization. Okay, great. So our interpretation is someone who is responsible for a unique idea that can benefit their organization, such as a new product, process improvement, ways of attracting business, or maybe a new technology implementation. We have an accelerating pace of change in almost all industries, where it's really driven by the need to reduce costs, compete more effectively, and innovate to either get or stay ahead. And so many people have so many great ideas sitting inside their head, but unless you can build momentum for buy-in from the right stakeholders, inside and outside your organization and get others to commit resources to make it happen, even the best ideas are never going to come to fruition. So this workshop teaches us how to navigate organizational politics by getting buy-in to take the ideas across the finish line. And I know I saw some of you cringe when I said the word politics, right? Like politics, but note that politics are not always negative. You know, every organization has them, and we need to learn how to effectively maneuver around organizational politics to gain necessary support. And that's what Innovation Changemaker is all about. All right, so now we'll go in and do a demo of that one. Any questions about that while I'm getting this one set up? Okay. All right. Whoops, that just went blank when I, oh, there it is, thinking again. Okay. Let's get that one there. You're seeing the exchange screen, I'm guessing. Okay, good. All right, so with this one, it's a little bit different because the time does not tick by like, I didn't do the share sound again. I got to do share sound. So the time does not tick by on its own. It ticks by based on how you choose to use your days. So I've used 44 days here already in this one, but we can go in and choose what we want to do with people. And as we go along, it will tell us the number of days it takes. So there's also in the workbook, there's a cheat sheet that says what each action has for how many days it takes. So for example, we want to do a floor tour, okay? It tells us that takes 2 days of our time to spend time with the staff who report to the top management team to improve understanding of organizational-wide implications. So I went ahead and chose that. And then you saw 2 days ticked by on our time there. We went from 44 to 46 days. So that took those 2 days. And now look at this. Opinions of all of these different stakeholders increased because we interacted with so many people in that one floor tour. And we had a 5% increase in our product coordination, meaning if it's a good fit for our market or not. So after we hit okay, it'll take us back to this main screen. Oh, wow. Exciting. You get to see all of those increases from all of those interactions with those people go up on that scorecard. So that's what this is your scorecard with your 20 stakeholders in the simulation. We also have an action history where we can go back and see all of the things that we've on each of the days of our simulation and can go back and see how that affected things or not, or if we did them at an appropriate time. There's also a network here of an informal network of people that influence each other, just like we talked about with stakeholder engagement. And you have to learn this. This is something that I had to request of the executive assistant, and he let me know after a few days' time that who's impacting who. And so now I know, okay, so just because somebody has an important title doesn't mean they're necessarily influential, as influential as someone who maybe has a lower title but has a lot of interaction with people, right? If somebody's running with somebody 3 days a week, they probably have a strong opinion, a strong influence over those other people that they're talking with or whatnot. And then we also have formal committees, of course, also that are available for everybody to know who works together on certain projects or whatnot. So then what we could do is once we know that, actually, let's go back and just look at that real quick to see. So somebody like Edward Arton, who's the executive assistant, he could impact any of these people that he's on that committee with, or anybody that he's in this run club with. So we could go back now and choose to do what we call indirect lobbying, where we ask Edward to impact someone else. And so somebody else that was in his group was Ralph Gifford was in his group. They're both at 35. And so we could choose to do it as a meeting or a phone call or email. We hit confirm, and it takes down one of our days from 54 to 53. I'm not willing to lobby this person right now. Ooh, because we shouldn't have asked him to do that because his buy-in was below 45%. Oops. So that's one of those things that actually will have been a waste of a day of our time, right? But instead, maybe we could use one of these other people who are in the green already and ask them to lobby somebody. So we could do lobbying of William to, let's just have him do to, let's do Samantha because she's at 45%, and have a meeting, hit confirm on that. We had one day tick down again, and he lobbied it and it worked. So his opinion increased 5% because people like to be asked favors and like to be, know that my opinion's important. And it increased 10% with the person that he was lobbying that person. Now here, this is that social network being affected. So we only asked him to lobby Samantha, but she shared her support with the 3 other people that she's in the run club with. And so their opinion also increased because we just talked to that one person. Cool. And as you can see, we have also resources, market fit, and coordination that we need to get to 100% in order to get full approval of our innovative idea also. What else what can I show you on here? What would you like to know in Innovation Changemaker? We only have 10 minutes left, so we'll try to pop out of here pretty quickly. Anything before we wrap up? Okay. Well, let me know if anybody wants additional questions afterwards. Like I said, I'm happy to schedule additional time with anyone. So we'll pop back over to our PowerPoint, and we will just address there again that there's lots of different tools that we give the participants. This is another example of another tool we use to help participants prioritize their stakeholders to decide who they should spend their time with. I already showed you some of these other tools that we have here. And then we have our reporting tools. So we have the opportunity to show as the facilitator how each of the different scores come together. And we show them, okay, this team is doing well, maybe because they had more face-to-face meetings, or they asked more advice, or they had more interactions with important stakeholders, versus this other team maybe was spending more time on the lower priority stakeholders or just sending emails or whatnot. So the reports are really helpful. Oh, actually, I didn't know that. That was one example of one of the reports. So now we'd love to hear from you all. Again, you can annotate or you could type in the chat if you want. Tell us, what do you think are the benefits of this type of artificial intelligence simulation learning experience? How do you feel that this is a helpful way to learn? Getting as close to real world training as you can without doing it in the real world. Yes, thank you. That is very helpful. Thanks, David. See the results of decisions. Yes, Deborah, it's nice to see the direct impact that your decisions have and how those can positively or negatively affect things. Makes learning fun and interactive without the risk of real life failures. Thanks, Jessica. Yeah, it's like how a pilot learns how to fly, right? They learn in a simulation because they don't want to really risk lives. And so we are doing the same thing here, where we can play in a gamified environment to learn without risking real reputation or dollars. I like how time is a part of it because that's a huge consideration. Great. Okay. Good. Yeah. So our clients tend to say that the main benefits are attention, where it grabs the learner's focus completely, engagement, it provides hands-on gamified learn by doing, and retention ensures a high training ROI, that it provides this long-lasting impact on self-awareness, behavior, and approach to future real situations. You've probably seen this before, since all of you are in learning and development, that there's the learning pyramid by the National Training Laboratory that suggests that most students only remember about 5 to 10% of what they learn in lectures or reading passively, versus students retain 75 to 90% of what they learn via practice by doing, and also by teaching others. And both of these are a large part of our simulation workshops, because participants are working together in teams and they're teaching each other what they've been absorbing to recommend what their next move in the simulation is going to be. So they're going to retain so much more information in this format. Let's see what else is in the chat. Lizlyn asked, can the modules be customized at minimum to more closely align to a given industry? Example, instead of mining or technology. Yes. Lizlyn, they cannot be customized. However, we actually do it on purpose, that it is an industry that they're not actually in, because then people would get caught up too much in the details. They get caught up in the weeds, where what it's about is practicing the relationship management, which is industry agnostic, right? It's applicable to any industry. So we've used these simulations with all kinds of different industries, you know, really everything, public sector, financial, airlines, you know, everything. And they all find that it's very helpful because it's about the practicing the relationship management. Thanks. And David said, I agree that this, because it makes the forget the course much less drastic. What? Oh, the forgetting curve much less drastic. Yes, David, got it. Yes, thank you. And you know, we find that the results are strengthened leadership skills, improved collaboration, and increased innovation. So just a recap again of our 4 simulations: stakeholder engagement, which you got a preview of. Also, you got a preview of innovation changemaker. Leading change uses the same technology as stakeholder engagement. So we didn't show you the technology, but it is a similar technology, but with a different scenario. It's a bank merger is the scenario for leading change. And with crisis management, it also uses the same technology as stakeholder engagement. The scenario, though, is a 2-week crisis of a fracking industry situation is what that scenario is. And there's 3-minute videos on each of our simulations if you want to share them with anyone else or anything like that on our website. I put in the chat our simulation page, and then you could go to each of the simulations if you want to learn a little bit more about any of those. Again, just to recap, let us know if you would like for us to host a private customized workshop for your team that Fuse will deliver, or deliver a workshop under your brand if you're a consultant, or train the trainer, someone in your organization, to deliver the workshops yourself. If you want to do the train the trainer process, it really is cost effective to do that. So let me know if you're interested in that easy process. And that's it. So we just have a few minutes left. If anybody has any additional questions, what questions can I answer? I'll put my contact information in the chat also.
Tracy, I have one. In the stakeholder engagement, when we did the interviews or we talked to the different people, is that all, could you have clicked and asked them multiple questions, more questions, as long as you could get through them in a certain amount of time, or are you limited to a certain number of questions?
You are limited to a certain number of questions per meeting, but it's 6 interactions. So either questions or responses, such as like what's in the development plan. But they do that on purpose because it's like real life, where your meetings kind of need to be fast, right?
Right.
And so, but you could then schedule another meeting and ask them additional questions at another time, or you could pick up the phone and call them too. Calling them as an option, or emailing them as an option also.
Okay, that answers a great question. So if you have somebody who is, say, dyslexic or a slower reader, they might be at a disadvantage. Is there audio? Are any of these set up so you could have it read to you?
Yes, we can use, like Zoom has the technology to have that added. So we could use the closed captioning or the reading, the audio reading to you. Also, there is a slower version, just the whole group would use a slower version if we wanted to. We wouldn't tell them. But we do have a version that could slow it down a little bit.
Right. And then last question for now anyway, Spanish translations or other translations?
Yes. We have Spanish, French, and English for most of the simulations.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else have any certain questions or anything I can clarify? I appreciate your interaction, and thank you all for staying with us. And it's certainly fun to get to hear from you all. So thanks for sharing your thoughts in the chat and off of mute and whatnot. I'll stay for if anybody has any additional questions, or again, I put in the chat my calendar link if anybody wants to schedule additional time on anything. And I'll stay if anybody has any other questions. All right. Thanks. Thanks, Jessica. Thanks, David. Thanks, Sherry. Bye, Deborah. Thanks, Lizlyn. Jerry, do you have any questions? All right.